honorable judges, respected opponents, and everyone watching today. I proudly stand as the leader of the opposition, and I strongly reject that motion. Government subsidies that should be increased to decrease poverty. Let me start by saying this clearly. We, on the opposition side, agree that poverty is a serious issue. No one here is denying that, but we reject that idea that increasing government subsidies is the right way to solve it. It sounds nice, it sounds compassionate, but in reality, in short term, it's risky and unsustainable. Our argument is simple: throwing more money into subsidies doesn't fix poverty, it often makes it worse in the long run. We'll prove this through three key points. The first point is subsidies have a heavy burden on the economy and lead to financial instability. The second point, they create dependency rather than empowerment. The third point, and they are often inefficient and corrupted, failing to reach the people who truly need them. Let's get into it. First point, I will elaborate the first point. Subsidies are an economic burden. Here is the cold truth. When the government increases subsidies, that money doesn't appear out of thin air. It comes from taxpayers' pockets or government debt. And when you constantly take money from one place to fund another, eventually the system collapses. According to the International Monetary Fund, fuel and food subsidies in developing countries already cost an average of 7% of their GDP. That's massive. To give you perspective, 7% of GDP is the same amount some countries use to fund their entire education system. So when the government keeps increasing subsidies, what happens? They either raise taxes or borrow money, or higher taxes hurt the middle classes and small businesses. Borrowing money increases national debt, which then leads to inflation. And guess what? Inflation hurts the poor the most. Let's take a real example. Indonesia's full subsidies. For years, the government spent billions keeping fuel prices low. But the reality was, those subsidies mostly benefit the middle and upper class who own cars, not the poor who take public transport. Eventually, the government realized it. They realized it couldn't afford to keep doing that. So in 2014, Indonesia reduced fuel subsidies drastically because the money was draining the national budget, over 3,000 trillion per year, just to keep prices low. That money could have been used for building schools, improving healthcare, or creating jobs, things that actually reduce poverty permanently. So increasing subsidies might sound good politically, but economically, it's a ticking time bomb. You're not solving poverty, you're just delaying financial disaster. And I will elaborate this second point. Subsidies create dependency, not progress. Now, let's talk about behavior. When people receive constant government assistance without condition or growth plans, it changes how they think and act. Instead of motivating people to improve their lives, it can make them comfortable with dependency. Let's be honest. If every time prices go up, the government gives free money or cheaper goods, people will stop trying to adapt or innovate. Why start a small business if you can rely on monthly aid? Why look for extra work if the government will keep covering your needs? That's what economists call the welfare trap. It's a condition where people stay poor not because they can't work, but because they have no reason to. Look at Venezuela. The government there increased subsidies for nearly everything: food, housing, fuel, trying to eliminate poverty. But at first, it looked good. But when oil prices crashed, the government couldn't afford the subsidies anymore. The result: massive inflation, shortage of basic goods, and an economy that collapsed. The people who were once dependent on subsidies were left with nothing. Even in Indonesia, we have seen this pattern. When the government reduced fuel subsidies, there was a huge backlash. Not because people were starving, but because they were used to low prices. That's dependency. It's like giving someone a crutch for so long that they forget how to walk. So instead of teaching people to rely on constant aid, the government should invest in empowerment programs like vocational training, job creation, and small business support. Those things build independence, not dependence. I will elaborate the point three, the third point. Subsidies are often inefficient and corrupted. Now, let's address the elephant in the room: corruption and inefficiency. Subsidies, in theory, should go to those who need the most. But in practice, that rarely happens because the system is bureaucratic, outdated, and often politically motivated. According to Transparency International 2022, over 25% of global subsidy funds are lost due to corruption, poor management, or simply being distributed to the wrong people. Let's take an example again. Fuel subsidies in many developing countries benefit those who consume the most, and that's usually the middle and upper class. Poor people who use less fuel gets a smaller share. And when it comes to cash transfer programs, it's not uncommon for money to leak through administrative corruption. Officials sometimes fake recipient data or take cuts along the way. So even when the government increases the subsidy budget, not all that money actually reaches the poor. And here's another problem: inflation. When the government keeps pumping money into subsidies, demand goes up while supply stay the same. Prices eventually rise and the value of the subsidy disappears. So we're stuck in a cycle. The first cycle is government gives more money, the prices go up, people demand more help, and the economy keeps spiraling. That's not sustainable development, that's chaos disguised as compassion. Okay. And the conclusion or the real solution of this debate, of this motion, the goal isn't to make poverty more comfortable. The goal is to eliminate poverty entirely, and you don't do that by handing out money forever. Instead of increasing subsidies, government should create jobs through infrastructure and investment projects, support small and local businesses, giving them access to credit and markets, improve education and training so people can get better jobs and escape poverty permanently. This solution take effort and time, but they build self-reliance, not dependence. So at the end of the day, this debate isn't about compassion versus cruelty. It's about what actually works. And history, economics, and logic all tell us the same thing. Increasing government subsidies is a short-term comfort that creates long-term pain. We, as the opposition, believe that real progress doesn't come from free aid, it's come from empowerment. Because giving the people money helps them for a day, but giving them opportunity helps them for life. Thank you.